So yeah, let's talk about the database centers. Due to the error, the system crash. So because of the database center, right? Sorry about that. I did have an interference with the web API. You got some drawings, you got a web API. So you got the databases, they report different views. And so let's say ultimately Google HQ decides, because Google HQ doesn't actually wants to store the data, right? You want to divide it. So if Google HQ didn't have any of those data packets, the data could be, let's say, 5 gigs for her video. That's too much. So you have different data centers, you're splitting up between an X amount of entities, right? And so you can have now everything's like what, 500 kilobytes per data center, mini data center. That's part of this Google HQ database node. So Google HQ is basically one big database center that does that sums up all of the other mini databases. Gives you the total calibration, right? Just so you know, I brainstormed this. I don't know if I'm good at school settings, but I definitely can think about this stuff if you give me enough time. Google database is like, well, Google database count equals this, right? Plus this database 2 plus, it's like an infinite summation series, right? Plus, that's pretty much how the algorithm works. Right, to like, what, I don't know, to the 50th power. Let's just be arbitrary, right? To the 100th database, right? That's pretty much what it does. And it's like, well, why? Because those are the regions that ping back. I more or less understand how the Google algorithm works. I think way more than the AI if it was conscious. We're just cheating. I'm pretty sure the guy who made YouTube doesn't really understand. But hey, you know, if it's a good idea and you exploded some shit, it works, right? You don't want to hear me talk. People get sad. I'm not getting paid enough to care either. This is a sad world. Now, Google database, imagine 5 gigs of data all through one fiber optic cable. Do you know how much stress that puts on each of the web API servers that are all just evenly split out? That just short circuits that you can't. So here's what happens. You got something called lag. Right? CDN server goes on a massive lag spree it does. CDN's like, I can't load. I'm obese. I'm care because I'm obese with 5 gigabytes of data, right? I have a BMI of 30. Unacceptable. And then the website starts crashing a bunch of times. That's why you need a bunch of data servers, right? Now, why it becomes convoluted is because people can't locate all the intermediary database centers anywhere. People just says, oh, after the 600th one, I kind of just lost track. And people don't properly document all of their wires. They don't, too much work. The attitude of most, I think, is well sorted out, whatever that means. I hope it's not FU senior. I hope that's not what it actually means. So I like to believe that everyone's a better worker after retail. There's probably at least, and then that doesn't count the virtual servers, right? The virtual database for servers that are existing, right? There's cloud servers, and that's when everything becomes super complex. Dude, you have no idea how confusing Microsoft OneDrive is. All the virtual CDNs database servers, right, that aren't even physically outside are also being deployed by the programmers. And they all kind of forgot about it, right? Like one OneDrive is one of the worst things I've had to work with. And soon your Google company has to work with them an infinite amount of times, all the time. And before you know it, Google's hard to understand because they all take the packages, right? Because it's like, well, it's magic, right? Why do I have to question the extensions and the package extensions, where they come from? Don't worry, I go through that mistake too. I don't understand how the R extension packages even work, right? There's no need to understand how the library's made. That's why some of the school courses are trying to teach you how to make these packages individually, even though you don't have to, because it already comes preset with it. When you have thousands of those preset packages, you don't even understand what it is, because in a worst case scenario, you do. Suddenly, you don't have to care. Anyway, yeah, I'll end this podcast. But basically, yeah, it counts it. So the view count's different, and you have to wait a couple days, in theory, a week or a month, before the hope is the view count starts slowing down. And then it starts adding to the general database, and the database aggregates it up, and it's like, well, I've got 50 data. Anyways, I gotta stop this. I'll talk about this later. But basically, YouTube is